The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and good morning, MYM Insiders. How's everybody doing today? This is Rich Harshaw, and we are here to talk about financing. This is our Contractor Business Accelerator webinar. We do this about once per quarter or so. And I wanted to touch on this topic of financing. If you've been with me much in the last probably 3 or 4 months, you've heard me talk about this a little bit. I want to formalize this up and give a presentation on it. I do want to apologize ahead of time. I am feeling a little bit under the weather today, so if I don't sound that great, well, just deal with it. It's not that big a deal. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And what we're going to do is we're going to start right here at the dentist. We're going to start at the dentist. And here's how this goes. This goes back about almost 2 years now. My wife came to me and said, hey, we need to get some dental work done for the kids. For various reasons, we had been sort of between dentists for a little bit over a year, and the kids hadn't been, and as a result, they had, all this stuff in their mouth that had built up and needed to be done. And in fact, my wife got me to go to the dentist as part of this initiative. And I'm really sort of an anti-dentist kind of a person, and turns out with good reason. And so I don't really go to the dentist that much. I take good care of my teeth at home, but not really so much the dentist. Well, here's the long story short. My wife came to me and she said, hey, between all of our 6 kids and you and me, the 8 of us, here's what we're looking at. Whoops. We're looking at $8,214.70. And part of that was for me because the dentist said, hey, we need to take your fillings out and replace them with new fillings because they're going to crack and they're going to fall out of your face. And I thought, well, you don't really want your fillings falling out of your face. They've been in there since I was a kid. They were the silver kind, and now they have new improved white ones. By the way, side note, they did that, and what a horrible experience that was. It hurt, and once they got the new ones in, it actually created a lot of sensitivity that I didn't have previously. They only did half, and I refused to let them do the other half. So I have half. If you ever see me, and if you ever see me speaking, if you're very observant, you'll notice that in the left half of my mouth, I've got silver fillings. On the right side, they're white. Nevertheless, $8,214. This was a number that I looked at and said, "This is you got to be kidding me! 8,000? What? I mean, what possibly could we need $8,000 worth of work?" Well, mine was, a certain chunk of that. I had a son that needed his wisdom teeth out. I have a daughter that has a gap between her teeth that ultimately was going to require some sort of surgical procedure to move it closer together, and all this stuff, fillings, all kinds of stuff, $8,214. So my first thought was, well, let's prioritize. What needs to be done first? What's the most critical? My son needed to get his wisdom teeth out. There were some fillings that needed to be taken care of. My stupid replacement of the fillings thing, that probably wasn't that urgent. So I thought, let's prioritize it. And my wife then handed me this little brochure, and she said, well, they can do this financing. So I did the math, and if you divide that amount of $8,200, whatever it was, by 12 payments, interest-free for 12 years, it was $684.56 per month. And I thought, well, that's a lot more doable. Now, here's what you need to understand about this situation. I am not Nelson Rockefeller or Bill Gates, but, I've got $8,200. If I need access to $8,200, I've got it. But it was just an amount of money that I looked at and thought, man, there's so many other things that I would rather do with $8,000, like not spend it on dental work. Pretty much anything but spend it on dental work. So the ability to put it into a $684 a month payment, I actually ended up upping the payment to $750 so that it got done in under a year because, with those credit card things or these payment situations, I didn't want to get down to the very last month and, somehow miss it by 13 cents or whatever. So I upped it to $750, and however long that took to pay, it was like 11 or 11 and a half payments or something. And we went ahead and we got it all done, including my horrible experience with the fillings getting redone. Now, we're going to start there because I think this is relevant to what you guys are trying to accomplish here. Let's talk about financing this. Some of the things that you as a remodeling contractor say or think or believe that aren't necessarily really true about financing. There's two major myths that I want to cover. The first one is that my customers don't need or don't want financing. I remember talking to Miles over at the board store. Let's see if Miles is on this call right now. I don't see Miles. Maybe he is. Maybe one of his partners or something. Anyway, I was talking to Miles at a MYM Live training and was thrilled to have him at the training, and we're having a good conversation, and this concept of financing came up, and he said, well, you know, my customers don't really need it. And I thought, well, what does that even mean, my customers don't need it? Well, here's what that means. If you fail to offer financing, then people are not usually going to proactively ask you for it. They're just not. It's just not the way people's brains are geared to think that, oh, well, I'm going to go in and ask you if you can finance this for me. If it's made available, they may take advantage. So what his customers had been doing is either finding the money themselves through their savings, maybe getting their own loan, depending on the size of the project, maybe using credit cards. I know I talk to a lot of contractors that say that they take credit cards. Let's say that credit cards cost you roughly 3%, maybe 3.5%, depending on the provider and so forth. So you look at that and say, well, that's a reasonable cost of doing business. But I would disagree with you pretty vehemently on this, my customers don't need or want financing. Hang on just one second. Sorry about that. I told you I'm a little bit under the weather today, and yeah, there's just no good way to sneeze on a webinar. Sorry about that. So my customers don't need or want financing. Here's the reality. They're lying. They do want it. They do need it. You say, well, no, we deal with some really rich people. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Rich people fall into a couple of categories. Category one is stupid rich people. And you're right, stupid rich people don't need financing. They don't want financing. I mean, I live in a community where there's some people that are, you know, fairly wealthy. I coach youth sports, and I've had the son of Major League Baseball players that make $18 million a year on my team before. And you know what? They're probably just going to write a check for the $8,200. But that's called stupid rich. Then there's the other kind of rich, which is people that make a good income, but they also have a lifestyle that stretches that income to the absolute limit. You know, it's really easy to make $25,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 a month and still not have just tons of extra cash flow laying around. So they're lying. They do want it. Truth, they don't know to ask for it. Truth, they'll use it if it's available. Truth, this is according to GE Capital. 38% of homeowners said they would not have made their purchase without financing. Now, we're talking about rich people. If you're not dealing with what we would call rich people, then this even becomes more important as you go through your presentation with your prospects. Okay, so here's the other financing myth: financing costs too much, so I'll only use it as a last-ditch effort. So in other words, we have it available, and we'll go through our sales meeting, and when we get to the end, and it's $16,000 for siding, and they say, "Wow, geez, you know, that's more than we thought," or they don't say it, but they really mean it. And so you kind of say, well, hey, we have some financing if that would make it easier. And I'm going to tell you what, that is what happened with my dental plan. And I'm not saying you can't do it that way, but I'm going to tell you what, I wouldn't recommend it. And I'm going to talk about how to use financing and how to present it a little bit later. But here's the preview. I'm going to recommend that you take and bite this off and just chew it. In other words, I'm going to recommend that you just offer it from the very beginning to all of your customers. And some of them will take advantage of it, some of them won't. But it really does make a difference how you present it. And we'll go over that here in just a few minutes, okay? And here's the truth. Financing doesn't cost you money. It makes you money. The average amount of money that financing is going to cost you is about 6%. About 6%. So on a $10,000 job that's financed, it's going to cost you about $600. And that's real money, and I understand that. But let's look at the numbers before we decide if it's going to cost you money. This is according to GE Capital, and this is across their home services portfolio. It includes all types of home improvement. It also includes things like air conditioning, sales, and so forth. So take that information. Just want to have full disclosure. Here's what they found. The average sale is, now, first of all, they don't know what the average sale was without financing because they have no way of tracking that, right? It falls outside of the parameters of what they can track. But here's what they do know. $5,519 was the average sale with no interest if paid in full in 12 months offer. That's the same one that I bought my dentist work on. Then they found this, $6,804, the average sale with no interest if paid in up to 36 months. So if you give them 24 or 36 months to pay at no interest, then it even goes up higher to $6,804. Average sale goes up. Now, why does it go up? Why wouldn't it just be the same amount of the sale, but more people buy it? And the answer is that people are going to not prioritize. Remember back to my dental work. Instead of saying, well, let's do the wisdom teeth and the cavities, but not the replacement fillings, they're going to say, well, let's just do it all. It also allows you to get higher margins because they're looking at the monthly payment as opposed to the bottom line number. Then here's what they also found, 7,466 average sale with longer term, low APR financing. So now the customer is paying an APR on this particular kind of financing. Generally, it's somewhere in the 6 to 10% rate range, depending on their credit worthiness. Still costs you 6%. But look at what's happened here. Let's assume that it's about $4,500 if there's no financing involved. Do you feel like that's a reasonable number? Look what happened here. We got $5,500 for financing, no interest if paid in 12 months. And I'm just assuming. I made this number up. I just want you to know that. I'm not trying to sneak one past you here. So if you feel like this number is not accurate or not representing reality, then feel free to adjust it. But I feel like this is probably pretty true. $4,500. If you can do that with no financing involved, meaning people are going to have to pull the money out of their own pocket or pay with their credit cards or whatever, then $4,500 to $5,500 to $6,800 to $7,400, it's an increase of about 67%. It's pretty massive. Okay? Let's run the numbers here. If average no financing sale is $4,500, and with long-term low APR financing at $7,466, here's what just happened. The sale price went up by $3,000. Now, I rounded that $7,400 up to $7,500, so forgive that. Gross margin goes up about $1,500. I'm assuming typical contractor gross profit margins of about 50%, okay? If yours are a little bit higher, a little bit lower, that's okay. You can adjust this. I've talked to a lot of contractors over the years, and using the placeholder 50% generic gross margin tends to work pretty well in conversations like this. So you get about $1,500 extra. Financing is going to cost you about 6% on the $7,500 sale, so that's about $450. So you've made an increased gross margin after you pay the financing fee of about $1,000. Now, some people might look at that and say, well, you've taken a third of my additional gross margin, so this is going to hurt my ratios and my percentages. To which my response is, who gives a rat's freaking butt about your stupid percentage? Why would you care about that? Would you rather have a higher percentage at the end of the day or $1,000 extra in your pocket at the end of the day? Pop quiz, which of these do you prefer, $1,000 extra or a nicer percentage that you can report and impress your accountant with? This is pure, creamy profit. We've already taken, this is gross margin we're talking about here. I want you to consider this for just a minute. By the way, the only number that I've imposed here, the only number that I've made up because I didn't know what it actually was the 4,500, okay? All of the other numbers are coming straight from GE Capital based on their portfolio of bazillions of customers, okay? What if your numbers were higher? So let's look at it this way. I see that we've got, let's see, Carol Weber is on the call. You don't have to answer this. I'm just kind of calling you out by name because I see you on the call. What is your average sale? Bill Kemp, I see you on the call. What's your average? Jim Fitlow, what's your average sale? You know, and right on down the line. Who else we got on here? We got lots of people. Troy, William, Fred's Best. You guys have, how much is your average sale? Let's say your average sale is $15,000. So now it's going to cost you what? Let's run some numbers here. Let's see, $4,500. I'm just going to run some numbers here with you for a minute. Let's see, and we go to $7,500, about a 1.67. So let's say that your numbers right now, Bill Kemp, I'm just making this up, maybe your numbers are higher or lower, but let's say your numbers are not $4,500 average sale without financing. Let's say that they're $10,000. $10,000 times 1.67, 67% increase, is $16,700. So we've got a $6,700 increase, $6,700, and let's say you've got 50% margins, so that's $3,350 of margin. Now, here's the interesting thing. As your sale price goes up based on this, this equation and this financing, guess what? You probably can actually raise your margins. You realize that, right? Especially if you do it the way I'm going to tell you here in just a second. So you don't have to just raise your price by an equivalent amount. You can actually raise your margins a little bit. But even if you only had the same margins, $3,350, so let me save that number. And the financing now is going to cost us, what was it, $16,700 times 6% is $1,002 minus the $3,350. It's $2,348 in increased gross profit. It's not an extra $1,000. It's extra $2,000. You say, well, not everybody's going to take advantage of this. I know, and that's okay. Those people will still buy whatever they were going to buy from you. Okay? So take this into consideration. Let's talk about how to offer it. This is critical. Don't use it as a last-ditch effort to salvage lost deals. Now, you could run your numbers all you want. You could say, okay, well, out of 10 sales that we get right now without offering financing, you know, we estimate that probably maybe 2 would take financing and 8 would not. But if we offered financing to everybody, now we get 6 people taking financing, and there's 4 extra people, and, you know, that hurts our margins across the board. I don't really think that's true, because I think that these numbers will hold true. And you know what? You can test this stuff and you can try it out. Because here's what I think is going to happen. I think you're going to see this increase in sale amount from 4,500 to 55 to 68 to 7,500 or whatever your numbers are. I think you're going to see it hold true. Here's what you do. You sell the payments just like car companies do. Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, this is what you say when you first sit down with them. Underline this. First sit down with them. Not at the end, not after you just dropped a $15,000 bomb on them, but before you ever get going. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, we offer several financing options to make this project affordable. You know what? It's okay to have an adult conversation with people at the beginning of a sales meeting for new siding or a kitchen remodel when it's obvious that it's going to cost a lot of money. You don't have to go in there pretending like it's going to be free or extraordinarily inexpensive. You don't have to pretend that. Mr. and Mrs. Johnson, obviously siding is a major home improvement project. It's going to cost some money. We have several financing options to make this project affordable. Let me ask you this, Mr. Johnson. How much money do you feel would fit comfortably into your monthly budget to make this project happen? Now, that is an assumptive question. We didn't ask them, hey, Mr. Johnson, do you want to finance this? Hey, we have some financing options available. Would you like to finance this or would you like to pay cash? We didn't ask them that. Here's what we asked them. How much money do you feel would fit comfortably into your monthly budget to make this project happen? Now, Mr. Johnson has every right to come back and say, oh, no, we've already got the cash set aside. We're just going to pay cash. Fantastic. Let's keep going. Or they might come back and say, well, I don't know. Maybe I want to finance it. Maybe I don't. What's your interest rate? To which you would respond, well, I can cover that with you at the end of the meeting. My question right now is very simple. What is going to fit comfortably in your monthly budget? It's a simple question. And for every 1 or 2 Mr. Johnsons that starts pummeling you with stupid questions or kind of getting up in your grill about, hey, I don't know if I want to do that, the other 98 are going to say, well, I don't know, maybe $300, $400. Or they might say something like, well, I hadn't really thought about that. We were planning on just paying cash for it, but now that you say you've got payments, how would that work? Well, I'm just asking you, Mr. Johnson, how much would fit into your budget? Get a number from them. Give prices in terms of monthly payments. Mr. Johnson, you just said $350 a month, $400. I'm going to show you what we can do. I'm going to show you how we're different. I'm going to show you why we're the best option to buy from. And then at the end of the presentation, you will see that we can very easily make this work within that budget. Not a problem whatsoever. We've got some fantastic, what do you call them? We got some fantastic options available, some programs that are going to make this very affordable with some great interest rates. So let's see how that looks at the end of this presentation, okay? You can always negotiate the length of the contract later if necessary, right? This is how you make the payments hit what they want. So Mr. Johnson comes in there and says, well, I could do $300 or $400, and it's an $8,200 project like my dental work was, and that's going to cost $680 per month on the 12 months, no interest. Well, that's not going to work for Mr. Johnson. So you come in there and say, well, we've got 12 months, no interest. That's going to be $682. But if you want to get this payment down to $350, we can do that, but it's going to be on a low APR, and that's going to stretch out for, you know, whatever it is. And I would recommend that you and your people get to where you understand these numbers so that you can fluently talk about them. When I say fluently, here's what I mean. You can know that a $10,000 deal on a typical 9% loan for an average of 60 months is going to be X dollars. And if you don't know how to do that, what you got to do is get you a financial calculator and just work through the numbers. I've got one right here. Let's do it real quick. If it's a $10,000 deal, whoops, not $100,000, $10,000 deal that goes into present value, and the interest rate is 9%, and there's the interest rate, and the monthly payment that we want is $399. I think we got to make that negative, and the amount of time would then be 28 months. Boom. You need to, now you don't need to learn how to necessarily run the financial calculator, but you need to find at least one person that knows how to run the financial calculator and create a table. Just create a little table. Here, let's do it for fun right now. Let me find something here. All righty. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Whoa. Let's go here. File, new, create. Okay, now let me share my screen. I've got a, what do you call this, a Excel spreadsheet going here. So what we do is we come in here and we say something like this. You say, well, Rich, can you make this for me? No, make it your own self. It's not that hard. If you don't know somebody with a financial calculator, go, you know, put an ad on Craigslist. I need somebody with a financial calculator. I'll pay you $20 to come put this stuff together for me. Here's what we've got. We've got amount. We've got interest, we've got payment, and we've got months. And I just did $10,000 at 9% interest with a $399 a month payment was 28 months. Okay? Now let's double check our work here. $399 times 28 is $11,172, which means that there's $1,172 of interest. That sounds about right, okay? And what you could do is you could just figure, you know, some of the major things out. You need to know what your typical sale is. And maybe you put together a little cheat sheet for your guys that says, okay, if the amount is $10,000 and you want, and we got a 9% payment, and you want a payment of $299. Okay, well, how would that work? Well, we come back to the calculator, we click in $299, we make that a negative number, make that the payment, we hit N, and it comes out 39 months. All right? There you go. And you know what? Here's what you're going to find. You're going to find that these numbers are going to be extraordinarily attractive to your customers. Look what we've just done. We've said for $300 a month, you can get this $10,000 project. You say, well, I want to do a $15,000 project because that's our typical sale. Okay, fantastic. Let's keep the 9% interest rate. Let's go back to a $399 a month payment. make this a little bigger on the screen so you can see it better. All right, there you go. Is that helpful? There you go. Wonderful. So now we've got $15,000 in our present value. We've got $399, and we'll make that negative in our payment. And we want to know how long is that going to take. That's going to be 45 months. Okay, still very reasonable, under 4 years to get this thing paid off at $399. If they wanted to go $299, then we would just need to punch that in. Again, if you don't know how to use a financial calculator, find somebody that does. There's people out there that know how to use this. Go call your accountant. He can run these numbers for you. Payment, and that's going to run us, let's see, 64 months. Okay? What if they don't have much money in their budget? Well, let's see what happens if we bring it down to $199. And so you could just put this table together for your people. It's fine. You see, I'm not trying to just sit here and do a bunch of math that's boring for you to watch on a webinar. I'm trying to tell you, put this stuff together so you can talk fluently about it. Let's see what happens at $199. I'm curious now. It's going to go on up there. Okay, 112 months. That's getting kind of long. But anyway, you get the idea, right? Easy enough. And then I would go in there and I would say, look, if your interest rate actually comes in a little bit lower because your credit's better, then your payment will go down. You know, if it's 8% up here, you know, let's see what that does. Let's see, 10,000, and we've got 8% now, and we've got $399, and now that's going to, oh, that didn't work. Let's see, 10,000. Payment is $399. Interest rate is 8%. That payment should be, number of payments should be different. No, I don't know how to use my own financial calculator, apparently. 8. Let's see. Anyway, we'll figure that out. But nevertheless, you can create this this deal, and you can let your people know, so they can give people a good idea. But here's what I want you to see from this. I want you to see that at some of these various amounts, you can keep the payment wherever you want. You just extend the number of months. So if somebody comes in and says, well, I can't do a penny more than $400, great. No, it's not a problem. We can do that. We just extend the number of months on the payment. Of course, you now sell this to GE Capital or whoever your bank is. And if your customer defaults or can't pay or goes bankrupt, then that's their problem, not your problem. They're going to take the risk. That's why you're paying them the 6%, for them to assume that risk, for them to hassle with collecting the payments. You can feel perfectly good conscience. If there's a banking institution willing to take that deal, then it's out of your hands. That's why you're paying the money, so that you don't have to worry about it, okay? All right. You can always negotiate the length of contract later. Make an extra $1,000 to $3,000 profit per customer that takes it on, okay? Let's look at that last point, okay? $1,000 to $3,000. Let's say that you've got right now an average of, let's just run some numbers here. Let's say you do 40 deals a month at an average of $10,000, and you've got a $400,000 company. Let's cut that in half. Let's say 20 deals. And out of those 20 deals, here's the interesting thing. Right now, let's say you're not offering financing. Out of those 20 deals, none of them are taking financing because you don't offer it. So you're not paying anything to the financing company, but your average sale is down. Well, here's the neat thing about this. Let's say that 10 of your customers take you up on the financing offer and 10 don't. Well, the ones that don't, guess what? You're not having to pay anything to the financing company for those. And the 10 that do at $10,000, let's say that your average amount goes up by $1,500. You just made $15,000 extra dollars this month, my friend. You see how that works? Yeah, that's how it works. Where to use it? Advertise it, monthly payments. I can see a radio commercial. Hey, for just $199 a month, we can give you new siding. Hey, does your house look like crap? We can redo the siding for $199 a month. Is your roof worn out? It's only going to cost you $199 a month. Whatever. I don't care what the price is. Like the car companies, I recommend that you choose a price that looks low, that is doable in a realistic scenario, and you advertise it. Now, the average person might be higher than that. If you see a lease on a lease price on a car commercial for a BMW and it says it's only $299 a month, well, guess what? The one that you want with the credit that you have is probably more like $700 a month. But there is an option available for $399 a month or whatever, okay? Put it on your website so when people are looking, they see it immediately. Rehash situation. We just talked about this the other day on the Tuesday morning ad clinic. Somebody called in and said, hey, we're going to send these letters out to our customers that didn't buy. What should we say? And I said, well, why not go back to them and say, hey, one of the major reasons that people don't buy is because it was too expensive. They couldn't afford it. So we've now got a financing program that makes it easy, and it's only going to cost you, $149 a month or whatever the case is. Early in the sales meeting, we talked about that already. Later in the sales meeting, okay, here's a case study. Closet organization company. This is one of our customers. Let me see if they're on the call right now. No, I don't see them on the call right now. Average sale used to be $3,500. This is before the recession. After the recession hit, it was more like $2,800. And they were saying that they were just seeing this dwindle. Okay? They were accepting credit cards, but they didn't offer any of the financing. I got them set up with one of my contacts to do some financing. Their first appointment after getting approved, $7,700 sale. The customer said, quote, let's go ahead and do all 3 closets now because it's affordable. Meaning if you look at that number, $7,700, payment, let's see, if they were to go 36 months at an 8% interest, the payment on that would be $241 a month for 36 months. It's just not that expensive, okay? It's just not that expensive. Anyway, let me tell you about GE Capital. They're not an official sponsor of MYM. If you go to our website, you'll see they're listed as a sponsor. That's because I have been, I've told them I am willing to promote them even though they're not a sponsor because I have clients that need to be working with them, okay? I asked them if they had any kind of reseller program, any kind of affiliate program, any way that I could make money by recommending you to do business with them, and they flat refused and said, no, we don't have anything like that. I said, it doesn't matter. I'm going to recommend them anyway, okay? I asked them to get involved with their MYM clients because it's needed. A few major advantages of GE Capital over some of the other banks that are out there, okay? Here's the first one. They have what's called a 1.25 payment factor, which means that they can set up a minimum monthly payment of 1.25% as opposed to most banks that require a 2% monthly minimum payment. So what that means is a couple of different ways you can look at that. If the sale amount is $5,000, their monthly minimum payment is going to be 1.25% of that, which is $63, as opposed to a 2% factor, which is going to be $100. This is on the left-hand side of your screen. So you can actually push the lower monthly payment. Or if your customer wanted to pay $100 a month, you could actually increase the amount of the sale up to $8,000, which is the interesting part. That's where you start making more money, right? I'll tell you what, we had an interesting discussion about this with one of my customers that is in the gutter business. And they said that a lot of their customers do gutter protection, but they also need gutters at the same time, but it starts getting expensive. I said, well, what I would do is just go in and pitch all of your customers that they need new gutters and gutter covers, and I would pitch it at a price point of something like $89 because it's really not that much money in the grand scheme of things. We're talking about a $3,000 or $4,000 sale. Pitch it for $49 or $59 and get people to look at it and go, well, crap, let's just do all of it. Here's what you want people to say. Well, crap, let's just do all of it, okay? I don't want to look at that. Lead generation, GE also has some lead generation things where people can go to their website and there's a dealer locator so they can actually send you leads. 2.5 million GE cardholders visit their site. There's a dealer locator. Again, that's something that might help you out. Also, this is an interesting tool that GE Capital has available. You can log into your account, and this is a bunch of crap on this screen that we could look at the details. But let me tell you the bottom line. this will tell you when your customers pay off their loan, so you can know when they've got money now available in their monthly budget to go back and sell them more, okay? That's an interesting tool that they have available. So this is my spiel on financing. I see that we have a few questions. Let me see if I can open this up. Okay. We're getting rejected by the financial companies because mold remediation is not on their approved list of loans for homeowners. Any advice or this or shortcuts that might be available? Lois at Valor Cleaning. I would have not guessed it was anybody but Lois at Valor Cleaning. The answer is I do not have any specific suggestions for you on that, although what you may want to do, Lois, is you may want to package in the mold remediation with the remodeling job that I know that your sister company or some quasi-related company does, and get it financed not as just strictly a mold remediation job, but as a remodeling job that would then potentially be covered under that. So if you take the $2,000 of mold remediation and the $8,000 of work that's going to need to be done in remodeling, and you package it into whatever that is. I can't remember what I just said, but let's say it's a $10,000 deal. Boom, now it's financed. And that might take some doing with the other company. I'm not sure what your relationship is exactly with them, but you get the idea, okay? But why not? If you can go in and sell it as a combo deal, and you can, even if it's a third-party company, and you go in and you essentially become the de facto sales agent for that company, and you make the deal happen, you can, let's say that your deal is $2,000, Lois, and their deal is $8,000. You can come in there, and what I would do is I would package it, let the deal go through them, finance through them, and I would make them give you the full $2,000 instead of the discounted 6%. Let them take the hit on the whole $10,000 and tell them that's your marketing cost for bringing them the freaking deal, right? Because that's worth some money. Okay. Let's see. Bankrate.com has an excellent web-based calculator. Okay, great. Thanks, Bill, for that tip. Bankrate.com. I have not personally looked at that, but I do know Bill, and Bill is always full of good information. So Bankrate.com is where you can find a web-based calculator. Any other comments or questions? It's a fairly short webinar today. The topic is pretty easy to understand. Anything else? Okay. That's what we're going to talk about for today. So until next time, which is at 11:30 Central Time, about 50 minutes from now, we're going to do our Insider Open Forum. We'll talk to you then. Talk to you later. Bye now.
The organizer has